What can we do to help police officers, good police officers, and be to turn in bad police officers? Like, we need to help these people be able to do this. And when I listen to your model, it like kind of takes that off the table. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it becomes relevant in the new system because you have employees that are being incentivized to do something that they want to do. So right now, say you are brutal and you want adrenaline. Like I joined policing for a large part for the idea of the adrenaline chase. I love doing car chases. I love doing extreme sports. I loved all that stuff. So I wanted the thrill element to it. Now, if the job was solely going out and catering to Miss Jones's needs, but I have been a cop. I don't know. I might not have chosen to do that because that's not what the job was. What the job is car chases and going after guns and doing these aggressive things. So we would be changing policing so much that it really isn't policing anymore. We're completely redefining it. I really think that this should be done from a public health aspect. It should be started all over from scratch. This really is the compromise because what I'm saying is this is the wrong way to do it. But we already have this police department. We already have this thing structured, budgeted. It's already a system that's in place. So we can fix this instead of trying to argue with everybody to start from scratch. We can kind of mold this into something since the resources are in place.
Police Services Department. I wrote a note after I was talking to Avi, and that really stuck out to me. Could you explain what Police Services Department is, how that functions in your model?
Well, I mean, we have to think about what are police services. So police services in our minds as humans, we say, well, when somebody robs a bank, we don't want to be robbed in the bank. So we want the police to do something. And right now, what police do is they go out and they investigate the details of a crime and try to find some way to put someone in prison. And here's the really kicker. Deterrence and prison and punishment, none of that shit works. I'm sorry, but it's just human nature. I can't explain to you why, if you say to somebody that you're going to put them in prison for 10 years, that they'll still commit a crime if they really need to. Well, I mean, I'm going to go with this because they really need it to, but I don't know the psychology behind it. All I know is the end result is that people will commit crimes for reasons that don't have anything to do with whether or not they're going to get punished. So we have to look at why the person committed the crime. So police services would be what you want a detective to do, and that is to figure out how to prevent you or your child or your mother or sister from becoming a bank robbery victim and being in the room when that happens. So to do that, we have to figure out the causations of crime. And the biggest causation of crime that we have in the entire scientific literature and everything that we know is lead poisoning and other environmental poisonings. So police services would be fighting lead poisoning as the #1 goal in ending the drug war, because this is changing the paradigm of what policing is. When in the current idea, policing is always violence. So like I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and he said, it's not comply or die. And I said, no, you're dead wrong. The law it is comply or die. From anything from a loitering ticket, eventually it could take years, but eventually that ends in you either do what the state says or you will die. And that is not the definition of policing that we can have.
Amazing, amazing. Comply or die. That brings up Philando Castile, and that brings up that whole situation. I didn't want to spend too much time on it, though I wanted people to imagine a way that we could avoid more Philando Castiles. And this model, which incentivized police officers to de-escalate situations, because look, he got pulled over how many times? Michael, you know the story way better than me. He got pulled over like 40 times, I don't know, some crazy number of times, and it's like that was his life. It was like he was hunted almost. And finally, he got killed by the hunter.
Yeah, I mean, totally, that's what it looks like. But I'm going to change that a little bit. And I don't know why we have people with guns doing car stops. So that would be the first question I would ask you when we have this idea in policing that there's no such thing as a routine car stop. Bullshit. 99.9999999% of car stops are completely routine and nothing happens, just like 99.9999999% of parking tickets are issued without a problem, and parking control agents don't run around carrying guns. So I want to know why there's a gun at all around Philando Castile, his daughter, and his girlfriend in that scenario. That's what my problem is. And I would argue that we do not have people with guns pulling over cars for traffic violations.
See, guys, this like it like really changes your brain. First of all, is wired one way, right? It makes sense what Mike was saying, but it's like it really has to seep in that. Hold up, this is logical. He's right. It's like if if it's really that rare, why are we armed? Just having the presence of the gun, the officer with the gun. If you didn't have that, then you would mitigate the opportunity for there to be violence or there to be death at a traffic stop. Now, I know that on the devil's advocate side, people would say, well, what about that 1% chance when you got the nutcase or the guy who's running from the cops, you don't know it, and he's thinking he's going to go back to jail, so now the officer's in danger, which is sort of like what a lot of people get their bread and butter on when they talk about about, I don't know, law and order police or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case and that's our actual philosophical basis, then we need to allow taxi cab drivers to have guns because their job is incredibly more dangerous than a police officer's job. So if the basis of your opinions are true and the methodology, then you need to be able to apply that all the way around. And I don't think people are going to make the argument that taxi cab drivers should have guns because their job is much more dangerous than a cop's job.